Okay, what is going on? Welcome to this video. I'm glad that you're here because this is a continuation of the ultimate build series. We're on the ultimate tank today. We already did the ultimate DPS and we just finished the ultimate hybrid build. And I'm excited to do this because this, like the ultimate hybrid, is kind of like a concept in and of itself. I'm going to do two styles of tank builds. One of them is kind of like a hybrid version and the other one is a pure tank. And just to let you know, to me, pure tanks are boring. You sit there, you draw aggro. They're not really fun. They're like mostly for support. So I'll show you that after the first one. But this one is an iteration of what I did before a while ago. I made a few changes because of the brand sets that have been updated and upgraded. So I had to make a few changes. And this right here, it's a tank in a way that it deflects your bullets because I'm using the deflector shield, and you're dealing damage to enemies while protecting yourself and drawing aggro. It's like a multifaceted tank, which is why it's so appealing to me. It's not as easy to use as your standard tank because you have to be a little bit more shifty. You have to move around left and right and just make sure you're doing things in order to have self-preservation. The other tank is pretty much what it's called, a tank. You can sit there, draw aggro, which is why I'm using a new exotic pistol so that I can get as many enemies aiming at me as possible. But let's get into this, okay? So I made a build similar to this called Invincible, and before that Insurmountable. So this goes along that same series. You don't really have to worry about the Ravenous. This right here is if you have completed the Iron Horse raid and got this weapon, this is going to be very valuable in this, because if you're going against elites, this build has a lot of protection from elites on it, so you can basically face tank them and use the Ravenous to penetrate like 𝐤𝐤's armor. They're not going to be able to damage you at all because while you switch shoulders from the right shoulder to the left shoulder, it gives you bonus armor and it gives you weapon damage amplified, specifically to the armor plates of the 𝐤𝐤's, which is why it's so good with it. Now I will say that for mini tanks and stuff like that, those mini tanks, they are the hardest hitting NPCs in the game. And if you're going against one of those elite mini tanks, the protection from elites does not apply to your shield. It only applies to your person, right? So it's going to melt your shield faster than you would think. And even if you have protection from elites, they deal so much damage, it's like you almost don't have it, but just for them, because they hit so hard. The elites aim at your head, the purple and red bars aim at your shield and your chest area. So you just have to be a little bit more shifty and crafty when going against elite enemies, right? So the pistol I'm using is this D50, which is great. It has Sadist on it, and you're going to see why I'm using it. First of all, the D50, it's extremely hard. Look at that total damage. It has 8 rounds in the magazine. It's a little bit unstable, but you can handle it, right? So Sadist amplifies your weapon damage by 20% to bleeding enemies. After 4 kills, it applies bleed to the next enemy you hit. The reason why I'm using this is because I'm using the 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐬's Pride exotic chest piece. Did you know that this talent, Bleeding Edge, it says shooting enemies within 15 meters applies bleed to the target, and it repairs 3 to 48% of your armor per second for every enemy that's bleeding. And here are the numbers. So if you're within the vicinity of like 3 to 5 enemies, you're going to get this maximum bonus. And this works with the deflector shield, because the deflector shield deflects bullets of enemies that fire at the shield. Causes incoming bullets to ricochet at nearby highlighted targets with clear line of sight to the agent. Though not a fully body shield, lack of a brace means that only a sidearm can be used alongside the shield. So this is not like the Crusader shield, whereas you can use an assault rifle, but the Crusader shield is also not as formidable as it. This right here has 8.5 million health, almost 8.6. This is for a reason. You have the maximum benefit of 60% deflector damage, and skill damage does not help the damage of your shield. You would think so because this is a skill, right? So at first, when I made this build a long time ago, I rolled my attributes with skill damage along with armor regeneration because I thought that because it was a shield, because it was a skill, it would increase the damage of the deflector. But this damage is static based on how many armor cores you have to get like 6 tiers. So since it's a tier 6, I get the maximum benefit. All right, so now, the whole idea of this is to be within the midst of the enemy, deal insane damage with Sadist while they're bleeding and remaining alive. It takes a little bit of skill, but in heroic, man, forget about it. You can breeze through heroic, and I suggest that when playing this build, that when playing the tank, you're gonna want to use the other version going against the mini tanks, and you're gonna see why in a minute. But let me finish this. Now, the way that you're able to have 60 to 80% protection from elites is with the mods in your gear. Protection from elites only comes from mods. One other source that it comes from is survivalist specialization, but you don't want to use that because you need the artificer hive, which exclusively comes with the technician specialization. Okay, and this, now remember I said that skill damage does not increase the damage of your deflector, but this does. The artificer hive heals your shield as it's taking damage, so the efficiency is increased with the skill tiers that you have, which is why before I wanted to increase my skill tiers to 3 or 4 or whatever, but it's really difficult to do that without the ninja bike bag. This is why I said this build is a little bit more difficult, but it's so rewarding and fun. I even use this build in PvP. It's insane, man. So the artificer hive is what heals your shield, and the buff amount is 30%, so it gives you extra damage. It repairs your skill by 33%, and here are the levels. Of course, you'll want the maximum benefit. But here's the thing, some of those don't even apply with the artificer hive. Like, the amount of charges you'll get is infinite because this is going to be on your back while you're playing. And so it's going to autonomously heal your shield without wasting any of the charges. The benefit for your team is that you have to throw it on the ground, and that's when the charges relinquish, like any other hive that you throw on the ground. So this is really great for shield build. And you cannot get this without using the technician specialization, which is why I don't need the protection from elites from the survivalist specialization. The way that I'm getting the extra protection from elites is, of course, with these mods in here. Protection from elites. Another mod in here, 12%. The max is 13%, but they're very hard to come by for some reason. Another 12% protection from elites. And the attribute composition you want to have here is armor regeneration and headshot damage. Reason being is you want to deal as much damage as you can to these enemies. Now, like I said before, this is hard coded in here because this is how I thought it would be. I thought this was the goated piece. I thought this was the god rolled piece for what I needed for this build strategy. Skill damage and armor regeneration. I'm like, yo, I got the armor regen, I got the skill damage. This deflector shield is gonna be crazy. But you want this to be headshot damage, and you always want armor regeneration. Okay, so you're gonna have to roll this also. But you can decide whether or not you want to have this named holster called the Forge. It gives you 50% shield health, which is kind of crazy, right? You can decide if you want to get this or have a little bit more protection from elites with this improvised holster. Now, the way that you get improvised pieces is by going and crafting them at the crafting station with Inaya. You got to scroll all the way down. Matter of fact, let me show you real quick how to craft it. So you come over here, scroll all the way down to holsters. Then you got to go here to the to this blueprint. There's 2 different types of blueprints, and right here will be improvised holster, or you can do a random brand holster. But if you craft this improvised holster, it's gonna give you whatever skill tier, armor core, weapon core. It's just random, right? So you got to get lucky, get an armor or whatever attributes you're looking for, and you want to roll armor regeneration and headshot damage. I'm gonna roll these pieces. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, man. I make a lot of builds, okay? So my materials and resources are scarce, which is why I don't really have certain things rolled, but I'm gonna tell you exactly what you need. Plus, with expertise and everything, this stuff is expensive, man. It seems like they just want to keep us busy with minuscule tasks that don't really do much. Because honestly, I don't know if expertise is gonna be in the next division, and I don't really feel motivated to max it out. My expertise level right now is like, what, 13? And I think the maximum is 25, bro. You know how many materials that is? Along with the exotic components, I don't really feel like doing that. But I'm going to tell you exactly what you need in order to make this build. Okay, so the backpack I have is an Anarchist Cookbook. This is the named backpack that you get from killing Vivian Connolly in the tanker mission. It's a guaranteed drop, and it has Perfectly Wicked. It says, increases total weapon damage by 18% for 27 seconds. So this increases your weapon damage by 18%, and then say this amplifies the amount of weapon damage that you have. So this is great. Now the source is the Ridgeway's Pride, which bleeds the enemies that are in front of you. Okay, and like I said, if you want to use just an assault rifle, you can, but the Ravenous is just great, man. Just look at how it destroys chunks. It's crazy. It's worth it. This is what I use when those robotic dogs come out, when chungas come out. I don't really use this against mini tanks because they just really hit hard. You can, you can. I mean, you can do it, but I'm just letting you know the pros and cons of this build. Every build is not perfect, but this is definitely an ultimate tank build when it comes to dealing damage and taking it because you're dishing it back. Plus, you can use the red bars and the purple bars to shoot the elites. And when the elites come up to me, I just face tank them or just hit them with my pistol because this deals insane damage as well. So let me go back outside before somebody runs into me and I get annoyed and show you what this other tank build is about. Now, this is the pure tank and this is insane. Tell you what, man. Crazy, right? So, I got a lot of builds here. Okay, right here. Boom. Now, I did not intend on making this a hybrid build. It just ended up being a hybrid build. Just because. I didn't mean to, but it just ended up being one because these two pieces, the R&K, forged, named holster, and these named gloves that I'm going to tell you about already come as a skill tier. Okay. Now, the attribute composition you want to have is pretty much really your choice because you're not the one who's going to be taking that damage. As a matter of fact, let me change it because it's supposed to be the bulwark shield. You're not the one who's supposed to be taking the damage. What's supposed to be taking the damage is this bulwark shield, which is really, look, 16 million. Now, that's double what the deflector shield was, which is why, look how many cores it has, 2, 4, 6 cores. So you get the maximum benefit, 400% shield health. That's crazy, right? And then you have holster regeneration when you put it away and 120% active regeneration. On top of the fact that I'm also using Artificer Hive, which heals it whenever I need it. Now, the reason why this is so great is because, first of all, you're providing a true tank for your squad, and you have your choice on what pistol you like to use. Now, the reason I'm using the Mosquito, which is not really that good to me, it serves very little purpose, and I think this is perfect for it. It says hitting an enemy applies a stack. Stacks are shared between players. At 10 stacks, the enemy will forcefully target the last player to apply a stack for 5 seconds. And it says stacks deplete every 5 seconds. Activating the effect on an enemy will remove all stacks for other enemies. So you can decide based on running with a team who's going to be receiving the stacks, so you guys could correlate it and make it so that you are the one who receives the stacks. Okay, let me see what mods these have. I like looking at these because this is an exotic weapon, so these are pretty much supposed to be considered exotic mods, which these aren't because you can get these bonuses with this regular mods. I think they should change these. But overall, this thing looks dope, man. I just like how it looks. It's got the snake skin. It's a really nice looking weapon. Okay, let me go grab the Liberty. That's crazy too. If you have the Liberty exotic pistol, you have a lot more options as well. Busy little bee, you don't really want to use that. You can use Regulus. Yeah, the Regulus is also an Iron Horse raid exclusive, so it's really hard to get, but it's worth it because it's really, really strong. And I want to tell you something about these kind of builds in a second and how they've evolved because it's crazy. But you can use the Liberty exotic pistol, which has something called Liberty or Death. Hits grant 2% weapon damage, stacks up to 30. So you'll get 60% weapon damage if you hit the enemy in the body, and then once you headshot, it'll consume all your stacks, repairing your shield for 3% per stack. So you can fully repair your shield if you're active enough with this. And you have the formidability to stand in front of them and do whatever you need to do. Your shield is not gonna go down. You're gonna see once you see how the build works. This opens you up so that you do not have to use something like the Artificer Hive. You can actually change the specialization if you want to, and then use something like the drone. Because you see, I have 5 skill tiers. I said to you before, I did not intend on making this a hybrid build, but it just ended up being that way. You see I got 1.3 million armor. Ideally, you would want this to be a little bit more, but like I said, you're not the one who's going to be taking that damage. The shield is. And if you look in here, I have the chill out mask, which allows for 2 mod slots. I have protection from elites for both of these. So I got 12, 24, 36, and another one, 42. 42% protection from elite. So if an enemy shoots you in the back, especially an elite, they're going to be dealing half of the damage to you. So 1.3 is a pretty solid number to have, especially considering that you will be dealing damage with drone, whatever other skill you want. You can put the turret down. 5 skill tiers is a lot, and most of the damage comes from your core, your tier. All right, let's get into this build. I'm using Point Man. The attribute composition you want to have is pretty much your choice. I like armor regeneration. It keeps you surviving. I mean, it's just the ultimate attribute to have for a tank build. So armor regeneration and headshot damage.
Incoming backup request.
Now Golan gear gives you for a 2-piece 60% health and 5% total armor. You could use a 3-piece if you want to get 2% armor regeneration, which is a ton. The total armor is good. The Golan gear's Healer Guard, rather. I'm sorry for saying Golan. Healer Guard is perfect for tank builds. Now this was on the other tank build, the Forge. You want that bulwark shield to be as strong as possible. 50% shield health is what's helping get to that 16 million. And you can roll whatever you want here. Armor regeneration, hazard protection is actually good. Anything that involves survivability is good. And these are the gloves that you want. Motherly Love. These are named gloves. Alp Summit. Repair skills is not really going to help you here unless you're using a heal build, but it has 10% skill health. This increases your shield's formidability even more. And skill damage is actually good on here because you have 5 skill tiers and it's going to help. So it's your choice. You have a lot of versatility with this build. Finally, I have a lot of names. Look at it. Wait a second. I just every single piece on here is a named item. I have the Chill Out Mask. I have the Point Man, perfect Vanguard. And by the way, I didn't even tell you what this is. Deploying a shield makes it invulnerable for 5 seconds. It grants 50% of your armor as bonus armor to all allies for 20 seconds. Now, this is a reason for you to have more armor, like 2 million, because depending on how much armor you have is how much bonus armor your team is going to get. But it's okay. You're still going to beast through if you have a good team that knows what they're doing. The cooldown for this is 25 seconds. And then I have the Forged named holster, the Motherly Love named gloves, and the Murakami Emperor's Guard knee pads. This has 1% armor regeneration, which is awesome. Okay, so this is going to be great. This should be changed. Or if you want to be more tanky, you can roll this. This is how it came. I haven't rolled this yet. But I'm just telling you. I'm just giving you options on what you can do here. So like I said, depending on if you want to be more offensive or defensive, add a little spice to your tank build. You can have a drone on your back, striker drone hitting enemies while you're tanking. That'll be awesome, especially against mini tanks. It's just a nuisance, as you can see. But let me tell you a little something about tank builds in PvP in general. Okay, you guys know I've made my fair share of tank builds. One of my favorite ones was Impregnable. I made that like almost 4 years ago, and I was destroying cats in PvP. It was during a time where those M1A rifle builds were running rampant and people were getting destroyed. So I was like, yo, let me use a shield and a Liberty exotic pistol and just take those enemies down in like 2 shots, because they were running like glass cannon, foxes, contractors, gloves. It was a pretty broken setup that the meta was using. So I had this shield, which was pretty tanky. It was nobody could stand in front of it. If those M1A users came at me, they would get destroyed with my Liberty pistol. And the icing on the cake for that build was that this shield couldn't even be taken down by the jammer pulse. So before Project Resolve and some of the updates, you didn't need to have, like, you see how I have 5 skill tiers right here. You didn't need to have 2 skill tiers or 3 skill tiers in order to jam my skills. You could have an all red build and use a jammer pulse and my shield would go down. So the build had all kind of disrupt resistance mods in it. It had hazard protection on it. So it was formidable enough so that it wouldn't get jammed and you couldn't do nothing with it, period. But now you're going to have at least 3 skill tiers in order to jam my shield, which makes this all the more stronger in PvP. Imagine using a Regulus with something like this in PvP. The headshot damage is crazy on here. And the headshot kills create a 5-meter explosion, dealing 400% weapon damage and applying bleed to all enemies hit. You could even use this with the other build that I had, the Deflector build. It's up to you. You know, it's your choice, right? That's why there's so much versatility in these kind of builds. I wouldn't recommend using the busy little bee because you have to switch your weapon in order to retain those stacks. You can actually use the Maximum 9 if you're using, let's say, this drone, because the Maximum 9 has perfect spike, and headshots grant 25% skill damage for 15 seconds. This is nuts, man. This is what I call an ultimate tank build. So that's pretty much it for this build, or this multifaceted build, as I say. The next one that's coming is the ultimate skill build, and I got something special for you right there, baby. I mean, you know, over time, everything has been overshadowed with hybrid builds because of all the versatility that they entail. But skill builds have been a forgotten art that are really strong now. So stay tuned for that. Let me know what you think about this down below in the comment section. As always, comment below and tell me what kind of builds you guys have made. Somebody joined my Discord the other day and we had a conversation. And by the way, go ahead and join my Discord in the description below. I play all kinds of games right now. I'm playing Dragon's Dogma 2, which I'm having a ball with. But I'm just trying to make my community Discord to where you have, okay, it's more than just a Division 2 Discord, but Division 2 is highlighted in there. Anyways, I'm getting off track, but somebody joined my Discord and we had a great conversation. He introduced his hybrid healer build to me, which I said, yo, I'm about to implement this and I'm going to shout you out on the video. Do you mind? He said, no, go ahead. So I just love when you guys add your input, include your builds and what you like to make, because it just makes everything better with this community and Division in general. So that'll do it for this one. Make sure you like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel for builds from DPS all the way to skill. I'll see you in the next one, fam. Be right out.